back to it later if you need, and so others who may have missed out on today's events will be able to come and watch it. Thank you. So now, at this time, please mute your mics for the best sound experience, otherwise the feedback could interfere with information we will be sharing today. Now, without further ado, here's Christian Salas.
All right, good afternoon, everybody, and happy pre-Halloween, All Hallows Eve and Dia de los Muertos. As always, first and foremost, can everybody hear me? Little thumbs up, little thing on the chat. Quick yes, quick no. All right, that's always good. It's when there's silence that I'm afraid. All right, so first and foremost, welcome to our third installment of the Mental Health Focus Fridays, brought to you by a partnership and collaboration between the El Paso Community College Mental Health Committee and the Tejano Virtual Events. This third installment is entitled The Mental Health of Students, Faculty, and Staff upon Returning to Campus. Now, if you've been joining us for the last couple of sessions, again, just to kind of synapse or summarize what we've been talking about, the first session was about, or more of an introduction on what is the Mental Health Committee and giving everybody an update as to what the work that we do has been, our origins, who makes up the Mental Health Committee, and also kind of a little call if anybody's interested. And I still welcome any questions, feedback, or interest on the Mental Health Committee. By all means, I'll have my contact information at the end of the presentation. And I always, and as well as a committee, we always welcome new members. We would always like to have new perspectives and what you as faculty, staff, and maybe even students bring to the table. Before we get started, I also would like to give a great shout out and acknowledge the hard work of not only my fellow EPCC Mental Health Committee members, but also for the staff at the Tejano Virtual Events. Because of them, I am here. And because of them, this collaboration, excuse me, is possible. So again, a great round of applause and a thank you to my colleagues, both at TVE and at the Mental Health Committee. All right, so I'm not going to say it anymore because if you've been with us, you know what the spoilers are. But if not, hey, humor me. I don't like to say the the learning outcomes and all that stuff, if in reality, because these are spoilers, right? It tells you what we're going to be talking about. And as I've mentioned before, it kind of gives you an idea whether or not it's going to be a good presentation or not. Hopefully it's a good one. We're going to start off with a real quick definition of mental health and mental illness. We did a whole presentation on this last week when we talked about, well, what is mental health and what is mental illness. So I'm not going to take too much time on that. And then we're going to talk about the pre, the peri, and the post pandemic issues that have faced and continue to face all three levels, that being our faculty, staff, and students. And at the end, I would like to invite anybody in the audience to talk about any individual experiences that you might have had either in the classroom or out in the quote unquote real world. And I will also pose some ways in which we can either us as ourselves deal with these issues or help our students or coworkers address and deal with the issues that they might be facing. All right. So what is mental health? If you recall, or if not, mental health are daily stressors. These can be things that kind of puts us over the top. Now, this can be things that affect us maybe once a day for a couple of hours, right? Maybe put you in a bad mood, or maybe put you in a down and sad mood. This could be for our students getting a bad grade, getting a parking ticket, getting to class and realizing that, oh, we have a test today, or oh wait, this is my hybrid class, I don't have class in person today. Things that can throw you off your daily routine. But individuals have ways of coping with these and can get back to a typical or a quote unquote normal mood fairly quickly. Now, When we talk about mental illness, however, mental illness is something that is diagnosable. These are your issues that, as I call it, our purple little Bible, or the DSM-5, or Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Health and Mental Illness, uh, number 5 or version 5, or however you want to put it, um, gives us a criteria. These dictates for us as mental health professionals. It tells us, okay, somebody needs to meet this set of symptoms in this criteria in order to be diagnosed with major depressive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, an eating disorder, a sleep disorder, um, schizophrenia, anxiety, depression, bipolar, personality disorder, so on and so forth. Those are mental illness. Now, I know sometimes these two are interchangeable, or people make them interchangeable, but they really aren't. Remember, a mental illness is something that an individual meets a criteria for. There are symptoms, there is a time frame, and again, there's a criteria that is met in order to be diagnosed with a mental illness. Mental health, however, again, just to summarize, is dealing and coping with the daily stressors of life. So again, mental illness, diagnosable; mental health, not diagnosable. All right, so before we start talking about the issues that we all have faced, let's let's set kind of a baseline, right? So that we understand where we're headed and to understand where we all come from. So it's it's understandable that as students, faculty, and staff, when it comes to the college, we have different roles. We have different responsibilities, different expectations, and even different stressors. The roles of a student is that of a student, right? To learn. That's the expectation as well. Your role is to be in the classroom. Excuse me, be in the classroom. Your role is that of, well, a student. As a faculty member, your role is that of a professor, of a teacher, an educator. Depending on where you work as a staff member, well, your role is that of support, right? You're the first line of defense when it comes to someone needing something done at the administrative level, or even at the resource level, which deals with our responsibilities. As a student, you're responsible to attend class. You're responsible to turn in your homework, to do your work, your homework. As a faculty member, you're responsible for preparing for class, grading, being at class, right? So in that case, students and faculty kind of have the same thing. Staff, the same, being on work on time, return, submitting reports, doing paperwork, knowing the answer to questions that might be posed. Expectations, same. Students have to be in class, almost the same as responsibilities for all three. And stressors. Well, as a student, what could cause you stress? Well, the faculty member, the staff member, the college. Um, if you get a traffic parking ticket at college, at the college, that's a stressor, and it's caused by, well, the college, right? El Paso PCC police. Your grades can be a stressor. Your group work could be a stressor. Many times I've heard that before. Oh no, no group work, please. As a faculty member, what could be stressors? Well, hearing students complain about group work. No, I'm just kidding. Um, I hear faculty members tell me that, well, sometimes they think we can take on so many things. So maybe putting too much on our plates could be a stressor. Staff, same, putting too much on our plate, having to deal with too many things at once. All right, but enough about the differences, right? All these things are different, and what makes us different? But when it comes to outside of the college, do we all not wear similar hats? Do we all not wear the hat of husband, wife, brother, sister, daughter, son, of east sider, west sider, of coach, maybe of tutor. Uh, we all wear multiple hats, and some of those hats just happen to be the same. I joked around at one of our last sessions when I said, have you ever, or can you remember a time when you were probably in elementary school and you saw your teachers out and about in the mall, in the grocery store, or maybe you just ran into them and you have this, oh, they go out, they do things, yeah, we do things. We go out. We're just outside of the college and outside of our responsibility and outside of our designated title and role. We're just like our students, right? Some of us can even be students ourselves. Some of us can be, we go to trainings. We sometimes even seek higher degrees or a certification. So we all can also wear the hat of student. Some of us as staff members or faculty members. As a staff member, you might be an adjunct faculty in a discipline. As a faculty member, you might have a non-instructional assignment that has to do with staff expectations or staff responsibility. So there is some crossing over of these roles as well. But what am I trying to say? Is that at the end of the day, we are all human, right? Regardless of your title, regardless of where you came from, regardless of what you do, we are all human. We can all be affected by mental health. And yes, if not treated and if not coped properly, mental health issues can develop into mental illness. All right, so let's dive into it. Can we remember a time when there was no pandemic? Sure, right? The good old times. I use that term lightly, or that phrase lightly. But what were some of the stressors that we all had? What were some of the things that caused us stress or that caused us some sort of grind our gears? Well, for all of us, school could be an issue, right? School could be something that caused us stress. Again, as students, this could be finishing school. It could be attendance at school. It could be homework. Same with faculty, preparing for, doing too many classes, excuse me, having other assignments other than just the our educate or our instructional assignments. For staff, the same. They can be seeking themselves. They could be seeking. They could be doing trainings. They could be. School doesn't necessarily have to mean attending classes. Could be some sort of education. Work. Again, I'm preaching to the choir. We all know the stressors that work can bring. Now, for students, that's not necessarily the college. For students, work could be seen as, excuse me, a stressor with school. Maybe they aren't able to attend class because of school. They have issues where they have to pick between work and school. And that can really put them at odds with themselves and even with family. Why is that? Well, in some cultures and in some families, the emphasis is put on education, right? Don't worry about work, go to school, get your education, go have your social mobility, move further up in that social ladder. And some, because of either culture or maybe because of need, work is emphasized more than school. And again, it could be dependent on the family. Maybe the family depends on the income of this one particular individual, this student. And so the emphasis is put on working rather than school. We depend on your income. We depend on you going to work. School is secondary. You can always go back to school. Interpersonal relationships. This can mean anything from a professional relationship, faculty student, faculty staff, student faculty, This can also mean any type of relationships that we might have, either with friends, uh, with girlfriends, boyfriends, significant others, spouses. Our relationship with our family could cause us stress. Kind of like I just mentioned, depending on what the emphasis is put on. Is it put on school or is it put on work? uh, Family can also be, and all these, believe me, by no means am I saying all these are are negative influencers. Family, I know from my perspective, when as a therapist and as a social worker, I can tell you that we try to include family in all the things, at least in all the treatment that we ascribe or that we work with a patient with, because family support is paramount. So all these are not negatives or don't necessarily have to be negatives. And social, well, you're like, wait, but how can social, you just said that having a good relationship can be positive. Definitely. But what about when uh, friends, peers have a negative influence on you? What if they're the ones that push you to go out and about and go drink and go do this and neglect some of the duties that you should be doing for school and work and maybe even family? Again, it sounds like all pessimism, all negativity, but these are all very viable reasons and factors that cause stress for us pre-pandemic. All right, so peri-pandemic, and I feel that that's a term that I just made up. I was preparing for one of my other classes, and there's prenatal, perinatal, and postnatal, and I was like, hey, peri-pandemic sounds really cool. This all just means it's during the pandemic. So I'm not going to go back and talk about the same things that we talked about for pre-pandemic because all those still influenced us. All those influenced us even during the pandemic. But let's talk about other things that affected us and that caused stress and that eventually caused issues with mental health for all of us. And again, I'm not singling out students, faculty, and staff. I'm lumping all of us as Tejanos, right? So these are issues that affected us all as part of our Tejano family. So isolation for goodness, how long was it? For about 18 months, right? Everything was shut down, right? The pandemic really put a cash bar on socializing. Um, I joke around. I'm like, well, it didn't really let me do my job as a social worker. Well, the first part of that title is social. I couldn't be social. I was just a worker. Ha. Anyways. All right. Thank you. I got to laugh. All right. Sorry. So we isolated. We did not have those social connections. Yes, all these great technologies and all these different apps came out where we could still see others. I'm sure that not everybody isolated and was not did not stay away from family, but we didn't get to hang out. We didn't get to do parties. We didn't get to do the things that we usually do, right? And we crave that. We need that. We need to socialize. We need to see other people, hear other voices, see other faces, engage in some sort of, excuse me, in some sort of activity that lets us de-stress, right? Some people might say, well, to me that's exercising. To me that's walking, riding a bike, maybe sitting around not doing anything for a while. That's great. That's coping. That's adapting to it. But for 18 months, that's extreme, right? And even then, even now, almost 2 years into the pandemic, even our college, we're still not full strength. We're not full face to face or even 50-50 face to face. We still have hybrid classes and online classes. So there's still that isolation, even in the classroom, even in staff offices, as faculty, even as students. And again, outside of the college, there's still that isolation. Now, some places might have gone back to quote unquote normal or some semblance of normalcy, but there's still that isolation factor. the uncertainty of the future, and not just the uncertainty of the future, but just uncertainty in general. Again, I I joked with my students at the beginning of the semester, this fall semester, because during faculty development week, there was no mandate for a mask, right? So we do our first day of classes. All right, guys, everybody, everything's online. See you all in a couple of days for those hybrid classes, da da da, so on and so forth. Cool, great. 2, 3 days later, we get that email from Dr. Serrata, right, that the county has implemented the mask mandate. So now, as faculty members, we need to wear the faculty mask, the the masks in the classroom. Okay, so be it. A couple of weeks later, no, well, they just well, the lawsuit that's going on. The mandate is only in the city. We're part of the county, so therefore we don't have to follow the city's mandate. We don't have to wear masks on campus anymore. Then a little bit later, oh, just kidding, masks are gone. So it's that uncertainty of, okay, are we doing masks? Are we not doing masks? Now that's just a very small tip of the iceberg example of uncertainty. Uncertainty can be, if I go out, what is the likelihood that I'm going to contract COVID-19, this Delta variant? How do I know that other people who don't have a mask may be or may not be vaccinated, that they themselves have or may not have COVID? How am I going to be sure that when I leave and I come back, I'm not myself going to have COVID and then pass it on to my family members? How am I certain that the people that I love, the people that I see on a daily basis, might not be lost because of COVID, that might not be sick tomorrow because of COVID? Now, yes, that's going off the deep end, but these are very true feelings, emotions, and thoughts that I have heard from across the board: staff, faculty, and even people that are not associated with EPCC. So that uncertainty of the future can also bring about mental health and even mental illness, because that can create anxiety, that can create phobias, and we'll talk about those here in a little bit. Substance use and abuse. Well, when people are home, take Texas for example. During the pandemic, they legalized the the delivery of alcohol to homes through app services, right? To the point that we saw the sale of alcohol increase upwards of 300, 400%. Well, our state will never forego a cash crop, right? Something where like, wow, we're making a lot of money. So we passed a law that said, hey, even now that we're quote unquote back to normal, we should continue this. Why should we give this up? This is a great idea. This is something that's awesome. Let's continue that. So, not, I don't want to say because of this, but we also saw an increase in substance use, especially alcohol consumption during the pandemic. Now, why do I bring up the factor or the consumption of alcohol or even other substances? Because these could be a way that individuals either maladaptively dealing with isolation or self-medicating for issues that they might have typically taken care of by talking to other people, going to places. Now, all this are assumptions, right? But these assumptions are based on the things that I've read, the things that I've heard from coworkers that are still working on the front lines, either not just in psychotherapy, but in substance abuse counseling. So again, the pandemic that caused us to stay home and isolate has also brought forth these issues of potential substance use, and then what started off as just casual using ended up turning into abuse. We also saw an increase in domestic violence. Again, individuals that might not have that out, might not be able to walk away, excuse me, might not be able to get out of the house and go to their typical spot to decompress. Could be the gym. Could be a bar, could be a restaurant, could be out with the buddies to a game. Again, remember, this is during the pandemic, so this is when things were still closed. So individuals that would use that as an out, as a way to deal and cope with maybe anger, maybe pressure, stress, that was not there. And so thus we saw this increase in domestic violence. The last thing I want to mention, at least for this portion, is where people obtain their information. So in many instances, people would gather information about the pandemic, about the mandates, about things that are current from, and no offense to any Joes, but Joe Schmo's Health Corner, right? Good old Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, any other form of social media that saw the increase of these self-made mental health professionals or self-made medical experts. Though I welcome free speech and I welcome the ability for people to state their opinion, it's also important to understand that people have a difficulty separating fact from fiction or true from fake. And so it's important for us to realize that there are times where we have to be that person that filters out the information for our students, for our coworkers, maybe not our coworkers, at least I hope not our coworkers, but for our students, right? In my classes, I'll be talking to my students about a particular topic, a particular subject, and we have a back and forth and we'll have a discussion. And amidst the discussion, I'll have students say, well, I read that this and this and this and this. Okay, where did you read that from? And I'm not questioning their facts. I just want to make sure that they understand that there are various sources of information out there, some of which are valid sources, some maybe not so valid, right? Some of these sources, I trust a cereal box more than I trust half of the stuff that's online. So again, it's really sifting through all this minutia and all this the bits of information that just make their way out there, but might not have an ounce of truth to it. And again, maybe it's our job to make sure that that information is correct, that we send that right information. Now, there also might be times where people don't want to hear the truth, right? People don't want to hear something that opposes their view. Completely understand. That's fine. Again, people are entitled to their opinion. But it's all about, as I tell my students, be tactful with your words. Don't be like, you're wrong. That's dumb. This is the stupidest thing you could ever have said. What the heck? No. I always welcome people's opinions. Like, oh, okay. Tell me about where did you read that from? And what does that say? Okay. Well, I read something that tells us different, that says this and this and this and this and this. And then it becomes more of a conversation. Now, will it always be that civil? No. I wish, right? But we know it's not. And there's no point in engaging in banter and going back and forth in the conversation that I know that it's not about winning. It's just like, hey, you know what? I value your opinion. Let's just settle on, we agree to disagree. But at least now I know where you're coming from. You know where I'm coming from. We're good. And simple as that. You don't want to cause your own stress. You don't want to cause your own mental health to decrease because of someone else's opinion or what someone else is saying. Is it frustrating? Heck yes, it's frustrating. Is it annoying? Oh gosh, yes, it's annoying. But at the end of the day, you're not going to change their mind. You can provide them information. You can do that. Yeah, but you're not going to change each other's opinions. So let's leave it at that. Whoa, did I skip one? I sure did. No, I didn't. Oh, sorry, I forgot I changed the title on that slide. Okay, so I purposely did not want to put post-pandemic because the pandemic's not really over, right? Yeah, we see, I hope we see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's not over. It's still affecting quite a few people and quite a large number of people. People are still getting infected, and unfortunately, people continue to die from this pandemic. So, as we return to normal, quote unquote, and return to some semblance of normalcy, whatever this normal is and will be, let's look at what some of the issues, what stressors are now present. And as before, things don't change from what affected us before the pandemic, as the good old times, to the things that affected us during the pandemic. Those are still some of the things that affect us till this day. But now, like I mentioned earlier, we have to deal with some new things. For example, an increase in phobias. Now, you might be thinking of, well, phobias of like heights, phobias of snakes, of dogs, of what? No. Think about it. For about 18 months, we were told if you leave your house, you're gonna contract COVID. And if you contract COVID, you might end up in the hospital on a respirator and potentially die. Well, I don't want to die. I don't want to end up in the hospital. So some people stayed home and they followed the CDC guidelines and they followed state the CDC guidelines, the state guidelines, county, city guidelines. Wore a mask, did not leave the house unless they needed to, uh, and all of a sudden now we reopen the state, right? We reopen the city. We are reopening restaurants and bars and schools again. For 18 so months we were saying don't do it, bad things can happen. In no way do I want to sound sarcastic by any means. I just, if anything, it's just to paint a point. And so we shift from that no, 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 don't do it, to hey, let's go back to some sort of normalcy, with that underlying tone of hey, still be careful and still be cautious, and try to remain safe by doing this and this and this. But again, we know that not everybody is doing it. We know that not everybody that's not wearing a mask is vaccinated. And again, regardless of where you stand with the vaccine and with the health mandates and so on and so forth, individuals that have been following these guidelines and have been doing what it has been asked of them, to now all of a sudden go to, just kidding, go about your day. Again, that's the sarcastic part. Well, we see an increase in phobias of people being afraid of leaving their homes, of engaging with other people. Why is that? Well, I just mentioned, because for the longest time, for 18 some odd months, the conversation has been no, 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 don't do it because you might contract this, you might end up here, and you might die. And so we have this issue with, wait, but now I'm supposed to just forget everything that was told to me for this X amount of time and just go about my life? Um, And so we got to be mindful of these issues. And again, not everybody will develop an actual phobia, but just being scared and being anxious about going out and about. I mentioned in one of my previous the section or installments of this series that during the pandemic, I remember seeing a company that, or I don't remember what it was, but they had 3-color wristbands, right? Those plastic wristbands, those silicone wristbands that we had and we still have, and they had green, yellow, and red. So the way that these were used was when people started to come back to this facility, to this place, to this whatever. Red was, you know what, I'm still social distancing. I'm still very much about the 6-foot rule, about masks, about not touching, about not doing this. I'm still in full pandemic mode, but I need to do this. And so that red wristband allowed people to know where that individual stood, not to push them away or to segregate them, but to create an understanding. In other words, to let other individuals know, you know what? Yes, I'm comfortable, or no, I'm not comfortable with me sitting here, or you being too close to me. The yellow one, again, okay, I'm about 6 foot rule about this, but I'll do the wing, I'll do the fist pump. We can converse. I can sit down and eat. I might take my mask off to eat and such. And then the green is, I'm fine. I'm okay. Maybe I'm vaccinated. Maybe I'm okay with shaking hands. I'm okay with doing a pat on the back, with sitting across from each other at the table. And so the reason I bring that up is because as we start moving back to returning to campus, as we start having students in the classroom, faculty in the classroom, faculty in staff offices, staff in faculty offices, and so on and so forth, we got to be mindful and respectful of where the others stand. In other words, when we went to the no mask mandate, I remember asking my students when I showed up to class that day and said, hey guys, I'm pretty sure everybody saw the email from Dr. Serrata, from our president, that stated that masks are not mandated anymore in the classroom or on campus for faculty, students, staff alike. However, I don't want to put anybody or make anybody feel uncomfortable. Though I'm up here, if anybody feels uncomfortable with me not having a mask on, let me know, and I will gladly continue to wear my mask. At the end of the day, I can take it off after class. I can take it off in my office. It will just be for those 50 minutes, that hour and 20 minutes, however long the class is. I'm a big boy. I can take it. Again, being mindful and being respectful of where my students might lie. At no point did I say, hey, take your mask off. No, don't worry about it. We don't need masks anymore. No, to each their own. If students want to continue wearing their masks, more power to them. But at the same time, I want to be mindful and respectful of all my students. And so, yes, to let you know, all my students said no. It was perfectly fine for me that they did not feel uncomfortable, and that it was okay for me to take my mask off while giving lecture or holding class. I assured them that it was perfectly fine. If anybody said no, that it was perfectly fine. We don't want to have that where everybody's saying no, and I don't want to be that one person. No, not at all. So again, that's why we're talking about all these issues, so that we are all mindful, that we all understand not only where we come from, but where the rest of our colleagues and our students might be coming from, and be mindful and be respectful of different excuse me, um, places of where we stand. And last but not least in this is feeling overwhelmed. Now, I can attest to this as a faculty member from the point that we went to full online, right? There's some programs that had never gone online, social work included. And I recall having a conversation. We were looking at having some courses online before the pandemic, and we're like, well, it's really hard to do some of the classes online because we need that social aspect of how do you see the nonverbal cues, and then assess the environment and assess this and assess that. But in 2 weeks, we took our entire program online, as everyone else here did. The same, not just us, but some of our faculty that did not know how to use computers, did not know how to use some of the systems that we utilize for going online: Blackboard, Zoom, Teams. To this day, I tell you, I was trying to hold a Teams meeting, and I think I omitted half of the people I needed to, because, well, I don't know. I don't know what I did. I'm still trying to figure it out. But I reconciled with Blackboard, and me and Blackboard are really tight and really close friends now. But some people might become overwhelmed with the constant change of, oh, well, now we're online. Oh, well, no, now we're going to do some hybrid. And so you might be part of the time in the classroom, but part-time online. And Next year, who knows where we might be. And so there might be this overwhelming feeling, not only from faculty, staff, but also from students of, well, I never wanted to be in online classes. I don't understand this. I don't have the resources. I don't have internet. I don't have a laptop. Well, we tried to fix that, right? As a college, we started offering laptops, hotspots, and such for our students. Well, but that's not always the case. Not everyone has that access or even transportation or has the time. Again, we wear multiple hats. Parents all of a sudden became teachers, became daycare professionals because now they had to take care of their kids the entire day. I know some of us had to do the same thing. Not just because we're faculty and staff members does not mean that we don't have families and we don't have our own children to take care of. So it can be overwhelming. And these issues can and affect us in the return to the classroom, in returning to campus and doing our duties and responsibilities as faculty, staff, and students. So not to rush. I know it's already 1:40 and we got about 10 minutes left. And I do want to be mindful of everybody's time as well as allow some time for any questions and comments that everybody might have. So let me just touch on some of these. How do we adapt to returning to campus and managing the mental health and possibly even mental illness of not only ourselves, but other faculty members, other staff members, and our students? Well, we got to be honest with ourselves. Sometimes we don't got it. You might be like, I got this, I got this, I got this. Sometimes we don't got this. And we got to be aware of that. We got to be honest with ourselves. With that comes being able to seek help. It's okay to seek help. I know in some cultures it's frowned upon. You know, why are you going to a doctor? They're just going to tell you you're sick. Well, yeah, that's exactly why I'm going to the doctor, so they can tell me what's wrong and they can, prescribe medication or tell me what I should do to feel better. Why are you going to go here? Why are you going to do that? Because because I don't feel well. I don't feel good. I need this. It's okay not to feel well. And you know, even I as a professional, I can sit here and say, oh, guys, breathing exercises are the best to help relaxation and go out for a walk and do that. Those are suggestions. What works for you is what works for you. You know yourselves better than anybody else. I know that if I need some time to just decompress, I have a kind of an expensive hobby, which is building Lego sets. There's times where I go on a shopping spree and I buy a bunch of Lego sets so that I have stuff laying around. And when I need to just kind of forget about everything, I'll sit there for an hour just building Legos. Yeah. And that's what works for me. Some of you are like, I can't sit there for an hour. Are you crazy? Heck no. I gotta go out and about. I gotta go run. I gotta do this. Perfect. As long as you know what helps you. Any mental health professional will not. I always tell my students, and again, sorry for the anecdotal stuff. A therapist, a social worker, if I ever told my patient what to do, I wasn't doing my job. It's not about telling someone what to do. It's about providing options for that individual and seeing what best fits them. So if you, at any point, if you feel and you're like, hey, you know what? Let me shoot Chris an email and say like, hey man, you know what? I saw one of your sessions with the Tejano virtual events, and we're talking about this. Hey man, I was wondering what. You'll probably get a bunch of questions as a response. They'll be like, hey, so tell me more about this. Tell me more about that. What about this? What do you like to do? What do you like? Because if I sat there and went, well, what I think you should really do is this and this and this and that, I would not really be helping you out. I would be doing you a disservice. So do that. If someone ever, as a student comes and asks you for help, don't be like, oh, you know what you should do? You should do this. Ask a couple of questions. What do you like to do? What did you do before the pandemic? What can you do now? Do you have anything do you have a bike? Do you have this? What can you do? What do you have available to you? Can your family help? If not, do we need to take it further and can I refer you to some services? The mental health committee and counseling both have the mental health committee has a portion under the services. If you go to the my.epcc.edu, go to services, At the bottom right corner, there is a mental health awareness link that will take you to our website. The counseling website, the EPCC counseling website, has the same. They have a list, excuse me, has a link that will take you to the UTEP, what's it called? What's it called? Oh, goodness gracious, I always forget. Empower Change website. And they have services categorized from mental health to um, food pantries, to help with rent, help with um, all different types of assistance that is out there, or categories of what you might be needing. Separated by zip code, separated by county, separated by even city, from El Paso to Las Cruces and Ciudad Juarez. With phone numbers, accurate phone numbers, current phone numbers. You're not going to find one that says, oh, you know what, we changed our phone number. No, they actually have someone on staff that keeps up with the changes for that agency. Increase your own self-awareness, your education, your understanding. Know your biases. Know any excuse me, misconceptions that might be out there about mental health, about mental illness, about people that experience these issues. You know, oh, the bipolar people, oh, those people that have the people that are on wheelchairs, oh, those bedbound people. No, don't fall under that category of, oh, well, I read about them. Oh, it's like, as I tell my student, if you've met one person with a particular disorder, you've met one person with that particular disorder. That's for mental illness. For mental health, we all manifest issues differently. In other words, they affect us differently. So just because you handle or you deal with or something affects you in a certain way, that doesn't mean that that's how it's going to affect someone else. So again, what's good for the goose might not be good for the gander. All right, 147. Any questions, comments, concerns that you all might have? Not everybody speak at once. For those of you that are doing the Tejano passport, Miss Patricia has put the link for the Tejano passport on the chat. So go ahead and give that a click. Thank you, thank you. But yeah, so I know we're running out of time, and that's all, folks. Also, something that I should have done in the previous ones, and duh, way to go me. The last or the fourth in our four-part series with the mental health focus Fridays will be on Friday, November 19th, again at 1 o'clock. And that one's entitled Any Cows? Checking in can go a long way. And it really is about the continuing the conversation about, as we go through the issues of mental health, returning to campus, and even beyond. COWS, for those of you who don't know and haven't been in the previous ones, is an acronym that stands for Crisis of the Week. And I should have not capitalized the S or put a period, because it's not Crisis of the Week. It's just Crisis of the Week. Anyways, that's going to be November 19th at 1 p.m. Again, here through Tejano Virtual Events. And that will be the final session that was brought forth by this collaboration between TVE and the Mental Health Committee. But we are working on something for the spring, so keep an ear out for that. And as always, any questions, comments, concerns that you might have, by all means, feel free to reach out to me. Again, Christian Salas, Chris Salas is fine. Um, I don't. It's not boasting, but LMSW is licensed master social worker, licensed in both Texas and New Mexico. My email here at EPCC, csala69 at epcc.edu. Phone number is 2469, and I'm over at Valle Verde A1102. So again, with that, any questions, comments, concerns? And if not, I yield my time over to Miss Patricia. Oh, thank you. There you go. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salas. What a wonderful session. I really felt like, when you were talking about the different stages, I remember when we first got back from, oh, we can go out of the house. And I remember being really panicked about going to Walmart. All the people.
Yeah.
Well, like,
Yeah.
It's crazy. But thank you so much for your session today. It was wonderful. Thank you to the audience. Y'all are a good audience today. I saw lots of emojis in the chat and go Cowboys. I would, if there is no other questions, I'd like to invite everyone to this afternoon session. We have this afternoon, there we go. We have Happy Math Hour in the same room. We have for Math 1314, we have properties of logarithms, exponential and logarithmic equations. And then we also have for Math 1324, basic matrix operations and inverses. So like I said, everyone is more than welcome to stay here and find out more information. Especially if you have any questions. Thank you again for being here. Thank you so much, Mr. Salas. You're such, I'm always cracking up at your jokes. I just don't always post, but I appreciate your humor.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the laugh. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend.
Great. Thank you. Happy Halloween.